For our next story, let's talk economics, or should I say Erdoganomics. The Turkish president is known for a lot of things. One of them is his bizarre economic policies. Let me explain. What do you do when inflation goes up? You hike interest rates, regulate the flow of cash in the system. That's Economics 101. But Erdogan does not agree. He says interest rates are the mother of all evil. So even when inflation went up, he kept interest rates low. And the result was this, a battered economy. In Turkey, inflation is sky high. Their currency, the lira, has collapsed. People are struggling to pay for food. Erdoganomics clearly backfired. So the Turkish leader has had a change of heart. Or he had to change his tune at the very least. That U-turn came this June. Erdogan won a record third term in office. He hired a new economic team. And he is also raising interest rates. In fact, the latest hike is making headlines. Do you know why? Because Ankara has raised interest rates to 40% now, 40. It's the highest level in 20 years. This is Turkey's sixth hike since June. In June, the interest rates were at 8.5%. We are in the month of November right now, and interest rates are at a record 40%. Citizens are struggling. They can't afford meals or rent.
These interest rate hikes won't affect the end result. If they increase by 20 percentage points, forget 5 percentage points. Real inflation isn't what the Turkish Statistical Institute is announcing. Citizens are at a loss.
I see that the central bank is putting up a fight. It's doing everything it can. By increasing interest rates, it's trying to keep foreign currencies stable and fighting against inflation. I see it's increasing interest rates in a determined way. Until now, we haven't seen inflation decrease, but I'm hopeful for the future.
The central bank is hopeful too. They admit that the policy is aggressive, but they believe it will work out. What about President Erdogan? He's quite optimistic. He says the economy will soon enter a quote-unquote virtuous cycle of disinflation and a stronger lira. About time it did. Not very long ago, Turkey was one of the better performing economies in the region. When Erdogan took power, in fact, they were doing quite well. In his first term, the economy grew rapidly. Between 2002 and 2021, they saw an annual growth rate of 5.8%. But the real trouble began when the Turkish lira started falling. In 2021, $1 was equal to 8 liras. In 2022, it was down to 19. You see the slide. The lira was weakening. But Erdogan stayed defiant. Soon everything started collapsing like dominoes. Last year, inflation hit a record 85.5%. That was the inflation level in Turkey, 85.5%. Plus, there were structural problems. The country's initial economic growth was not stable to begin with, and it could no longer be sustained. So it collapsed. And Erdogan made it worse. His policies were unorthodox and sometimes downright illogical. But no one could challenge him. Those who did lost their jobs. Those who did not had to toe his line. Looks like his recent election win has forced a rethink. Erdogan no longer has polls to worry about, at least not for the next 4 years. He does not have to appease the public for some time, so he can afford some radical action. That should explain the rising interest rates. Although he insists that his views have not changed, he still believes lower interest rates is the way to go. But that could just be a tactic. If it works out, he can take all the credit. If it does not, he can blame the central bank. Either way, Turkey is in pain, and it may not end anytime soon.